Ready? All right, I'm going to call to order the regular town board meeting for June 28th of the Waxhaw Town Board. It's 6:30. We got a rather full agenda tonight. I'd ask that you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Silence. Thank you. We have two changes to the agenda. Under the consent agenda, item number C4, the approval of board and committee appointments. We've been asked to move and defer that to the July 26th meeting. And with that, we are adding an agenda item number G3, which is to extend all expiring terms of all town boards and committees to July 31st, 2016. We will have a motion for that. So those are the two changes I know of. Are there any additional changes? If not, I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda. Okay, we have a motion to adopt the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public comments. We are doing this in two sections tonight. First, we're going to do general comments and then specific comments on the proposed exchange of town property on Waxhaw Marvin Road. I have the list up here. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes, and we'll begin with, on the public comments, Mr. Earl Cook. Please come up and state your name and address and whether or not you're a resident of the town as you come up, please.
Good evening. My name is Earl Cook. I am a resident of Waxhaw for 13 years, living at 8115 Denholm Drive. That's on the Waxhaw Marvin Road in the Quelland development. And I'll actually be speaking twice tonight, in the next one as well. But in the general comments, I want to simply say that I won't be agreeing with everyone tonight. Every issue has two sides. But just like an election that's going to come up in November, there will be several million people vote differently, but they don't have to lose friendships nor relationships. So tonight, whatever is said on either side, I'd really like to stress that we remain civil and respectful. When I said I live on the Waxhaw Marvin Road, I live directly in front of the parkland that's under discussion tonight. When I come out of my development, I'm looking straight at an entrance monument that I certainly don't like. I came here 13 years ago, and it was all beautiful green grassland in front. My wife and I came to Waxhaw for no reason. We didn't come for work. We did not come for family. Knew no one in the state. Yet here we are, and we systematically selected Waxhaw. So what I want to point out in the general comments is do not confuse being a resident of the town of Waxhaw and paying taxes with having a Waxhaw zip code, as many of our neighbors in bordering municipalities do. There's a big difference. And we welcome those municipalities, but this is a Waxhaw issue, and we still welcome those people. And I want to mention that when I came here, it was a very small, sleepy farm community. Anyone that's been here in the last 13 years, come after that, should know there was no Kensington Drive, no Lowe's, no Harris Teeter, no Curitan Town Center, no Lawson, no Millbridge, no Anklin Forest. I have seen a 7-fold increase in the population. Now that gives me an option, a choice. I can look at that increase in the changes it's brought in 13 years in one of two ways. Firstly, I can say, anyone that came after me has added to the traffic problem and changing the town that I love. That's one way. The other is, I can say, welcome to charming, historic Waxhaw. I'm glad you're here to share the beauties, bounties, and blessings of the town that has been designated as the #1 town in North Carolina to raise a young family. Now, I choose the latter. And when I speak specifically about the park plan, I will be speaking in favor of the park that's directly in front of my house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Diana Ayers.
My name is Diana Ayers. I am a resident. I live at 8808 Anklin Forest Drive. My house is on Anklin Forest, and I am a transplant. Have only been here since October of 2012. Prior to coming here, I was working. I am now retired, and so is my husband. We came here because of Union County being a better option than several communities in the area. I have been in real estate, and I am concerned about what is happening presently in the growth patterns here. My biggest concern is that I am not seeing, I'm seeing development, but I am not seeing infrastructure being improved. We go about things cart before the horse, maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But I would like some openness I haven't seen and discussion of where the road situation is on Waxhaw Marvin Road. We're getting development of a church, a school. We also have over by Harris Teeter, a new church. Looks like a mega church to me, but we don't have the road system. But we did get a widening of the road on Providence by Prescott Village, but no development. I don't know what's happening. I try and keep informed, but I'm not seeing or hearing anything positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Alida Galusha.
Good evening. My name's Alida Galusha. I live in Curitan on White Hawk Hill Road. I moved here December of 2012, and I've been trying to keep abreast of what's going on in Waxhaw. I did not deliberately come to Waxhaw. I just fell in love with my home and the neighborhood that I'm living in, and I consider myself very fortunate that I ended up here. However, when I study what's going on, I worry, and I hope that I won't have to move from the area. I've kept track of this famous UDO that we talk about all the time. And I wonder, if we're working so hard on our UDO, why do we keep sidestepping it? And we have a petition on the agenda today requesting to amend the restaurant section 11.3.61 to get some fast food drive-through restaurants to have two of them at an intersection of two public streets. And I say to myself, why are we futzing around with the UDO at this point? We haven't even finished it, and we're already altering it. So that's one issue I am speaking to. I'm very annoyed about that. We never seem to finish anything, carry it through to the end, and then make decisions after we have our finished product. The other thing I just want to say is I spent 37 years in the real estate business, and I'm all too familiar, having come from New Jersey, the most densely populated state in this United States of America. Crowding houses is not a good thing. Now, I looked at the proposal for the swapping of some of our 34-acre parkland with a developer and ending up with a smaller park, but getting the developer to not kick back, I won't use that word, but to pay for our loss of some of the acreage. In return, we're going to have some money that we can use to develop this smaller park. And coming from an area where we had a large park that sat for 30 years and never got developed, and the town kept trying to develop that 80-acre park, and all that happened, all the years that went by, is the price of developing it went up and up and up and up and up, to the point where it was ridiculous to develop it. So maybe that's not such a bad thing. I don't have a problem with that. My problem is, I looked at this map, I saw 20 lots, and each house seems to have just under an acre. That's very nice. I don't want to hear at the next meeting or the following one after that the builder is going to come and ask for a change in zoning to do high density. I don't want to see a, 0.15 acres per lot. That would be a disaster. We have a crowding problem already. We don't need to get more crowded. So as long as the zoning stays the same, I'm okay with it. And that's all I have to say, and I thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we are going to move to comments on the proposed exchange of town property on Waxhaw, Marvin Road. Before we begin that, I'm going to put myself out there, and I feel I have an obligation to make a comment. What will come before the board this evening is not a park decision, but a policy decision on two fronts. How the board supports our comprehensive plan direction on voluntary annexation, and if we and how we support the park master plan for the town of Waxhaw. There's been a lot of confusing and misguided information being floated since the last meeting. That always happens in these situations. It will be addressed in the formal discussion later. But no matter where you stand on this, and this is something I have to get out there, it is irresponsible, if not worse, to use the terms as recklessly as they've been applied via social media and out in the public to some individuals, and very specifically to our town manager. To openly disparage an individual's values, characters, his work, and his past work is just wrong, folks. Those that did it on social media and those that did it publicly know who they are, what was said. I'm not going into specifics. What I will say is Mr. Wood, as does his staff, takes the values that have guided this town for 2 years very seriously. Accountability, innovation, integrity, professionalism, respect, stewardship, and teamwork. Criticism comes with the job. We're all in a fishbowl. We get it. Personal attacks of any kind, offensive and disparaging comments, do not. I want to state publicly that Mr. Wood has been honest, trustworthy, and given us all the information we've asked for and needed to make an important decision tonight, whatever the decision is. Mr. Wood takes direction from the board and the policies that the body of this board has instituted. He's holding us accountable to our policies. He was directed to pursue the solutions to annexation situations impacting Waxhaw over 1 year ago. Annexation and de-annexation are hot topics in the state. If you go to Raleigh, annexation is a toxic word. It's a very complex situation, and one that we purposely have been open and transparent about and get the information out. All that to say, let's have a good discussion tonight, an adult discussion, mindful of the values that have guided this town for 2 years. With that, Mr. Earl Cook.
Good evening, and once again, thank you for this opportunity to speak. You already know that I'm a Waxhaw resident, and I live directly in front of the proposed development and land that's at issue tonight. A few things that people may not be aware of, I do want to mention. That land, that 34 acres, was purchased in the late spring of 2012, and I was very pleased. In fact, I thought it was a smart growth opportunity. The Board of Commissioners 4 years ago saw an opportunity, and they took it and acquired that land. It was in the county. They had to rezone it and then annex it. The same as this fine building that we're in. I consider that to be smart growth opportunity and building for the future, a police station for 50 years. But the problem is, when the land was bought, there was no specific plan for it. There was no funding established. There wasn't even a Parks and Rec department to manage the land. And like the lady from New Jersey said, for 4 years, it's been sitting there, doing nothing. And we've had all of that money tied up with the debt service on it. People say, okay, there's no citizen input. Please go to the Parks and Rec master plan and look. You'll see that there was citizen input. It actually began 2 years before that in 2010. It started with a citizen advisory committee. From there, it led to many public meetings that were well advertised. Those public meetings and the sign-up sheets of who was there are contained within the park plan. Also, there were many stakeholder interviews. Stakeholders the likes of all the athletic groups, Boy Scouts, women's clubs, school reps, senior citizens, civic groups, business leaders, the Waxhaw Business Association, etc. So there was a tremendous amount of public input into the plan, the present Master Parks and Rec and Culture Plan that was approved in August of 2012, 5 months after the land was approved for purchase. Now, if you look at that plan, you'll see that the same board that purchased the land and approved the plan, that 34 acres does not call for a community park. It calls for a neighborhood park. A neighborhood park is 10 acres. Specifically, it said it should be a neighborhood park of 10 acres because everything is already heavily clustered on that side of Waxhaw, while we have underserved portions of Waxhaw on this side and to the south that have no parks. Therefore, it would be unreal to go ahead and invest in a 50, 34, 20 acre park there. Now, why? Within walking distance that will be connected with a greenway.
3 minutes.
You have the H.C. Nesbitt Park that we've spent over $300,000 on, and I was very pleased about. The Town Creek Park that was dedicated, a 2 acre pocket park. Anyway, folks, smart growth is realizing when there's opportunity and taking advantage and having discipline to stay focused. Part of something, all of nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bonnie Rosinko?
My name is Bonnie Rosinko. I live at 2501 Providence Road South. I agree with Earl about having friendships after the discussions because we aren't all going to agree on it. The thing of it is that I have always been for an open park, a family park, from the time that I heard about this when Mr. Wood came to the Parks and Rec and presented a presentation. I made a comment then at the time, just why can't we have a park that we can just go to the park with our families, our children, lay on a blanket, look at the stars, whatever, watch kids fish. For 7 long years, I have faithfully come to these BOC meetings. I have seen commissioners come and I have seen them go. Watched, listened, witnesses, injustices and justices, bad deals and good deals. Believe me, I have seen it all. But then once in a while, and I mean once in a while, a very good thing comes along that is done right on all accounts, something that will benefit the citizens of Waxhaw. The purchase of this park property is one of good things. And yes, Earl is right, it was not purchased for a park, it was purchased for probably, I think at the time, maybe an equestrian or so forth. But through the years, it has been sitting, and then all of a sudden it came up as a park project. And yes, 10 acres for a town park or a neighborhood park is correct. However, since we have the 34 acres, and with all the growth that you guys are boosting about, we need a larger family park other than 10 acres. And yes, we have other parks, but we have a skate park for kids. We have the Nesbitt Park for joggers and other things. It's not a big park enough where you can go and just sit and have pavilions or family reunions or just sit and watch people. So why do we want to dice and slice the heart of this or even give a portion of it to a developer? It was purchased by us, so what gives us the right, or you the right, to, at a flick of a pen, to do such an injustice to the people? What have we ever done to you to deserve such treatment? I don't understand. As stated in the draft in the new comprehensive plan, it states the town lacks 123 acres of land dedicated for parks. So why are we now giving acres away? Did we miraculously inherit too much parkland to meet this quota? I don't understand how you can arbitrarily go against our own land use plan. It states that the zoning for this park probably should stay rural. Zoning this property any other way goes against the land use. I also know, yes, that the new land use plan is being redone, and it's marked for high density, probably. But you have to abide by the current one, which is the old comp plan, until the new one is approved. You can't just pick up and choose to suit your needs by whichever plan is favorable for what you want. That is like saying, I know the speed limit is 50 right now, but I know that's going to change to 60 in a couple weeks. So why can't I just go ahead and do 60 now? They won't give me a ticket. Try it.
3 minutes.
The developer is not only doing us a favor by taking this land. If you haven't noticed, you are giving the developer the opportunity to build an additional 66 rezoning. The only thing I ask before closing is that you don't give away the park. Before I leave the podium, and since there is a total, probably not too many people are going to be able to sign up for this, I just want you to know that I am for a family park, whether it's 10 acres or 34. Thank you.
Thank you. Shell Holston?
Hello, folks. My name is Shell. I guess I better go over here. My name's Shell Holston, and I've been here in Waxhaw, a resident in Waxhaw for 41 years, probably longer than most of you have been alive. Nevertheless, I've been at 224 West North Main, and I'm in the Historic District. I don't know some of you, and some of you I have met, but I'm paying your salary, I think, part of it anyway. I just wrote all this down, and I think this deal, if you vote for it, it's the worst deal I've ever seen in my life, and I was in construction for quite some time. This is raping a piece of property that should be a park, It's completely taken away. But I'm addressing not so much as you're buying the property, but what happens to the property after it's purchased. One thing is, we purchased the property at $1,386,400. The builder wants to give us less than half of that. That's just absolutely an atrocity. That's all I can say. And that's not all. If we go with this, the green portion on here, I looked at and I thought, I cannot believe this. The green portion is what we're going to be responsible for, the taxpayer of Waxhaw. We're going to be responsible for this. This means that we will probably have to hire a couple of other people for mowing, for leaf management or removal. And in addition to that, we have to buy extra material to go along with it. We have to buy heavy-duty lawnmowers and this sort of thing. This is absolutely the worst liability that I have seen on a piece of property. This is the property that will have the highest liability in the ponds, which of course I don't know what pond security would cost, but I'm sure it would cost a good deal. This is also incorporating the trails, which of course we would be responsible for, the buffers and the trails themselves. This would be a year-round headache for the people of Waxhaw to have to pay taxes on. Oh, but we're going to get $144,000 in tax revenue. That tax revenue, if you hire two people, you get all this machinery and everything, that's going to be wiped out completely. Every year, you're not going to make any money on the tax. Actually, when I look at this, I think to myself, who did this deal? Whoever did it, in my opinion, and maybe I'm not on social media, so I know it wasn't something that I said, but I'll tell you what's the truth. If Donald Trump was here, he'd say, you're fired. anybody that would pass this, it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. We need to keep this as a park. There are two solutions, the way I look at it, two solutions. One is to sell the whole 34 acres to the builder, but sell it for what he thinks it's worth. That would be about $5.5 million, and that's a good deal because it goes up exponentially every year, the value of property. The other deal would be make it into a park, a full park, so that everybody can enjoy it and we don't have to pay for it every year down the road. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Diana Ayers.
Oh, yeah. This has to be a precedent. I don't know, I've seen Doug Emerson step to the podium twice in a meeting, but I've never seen anyone do it 3 times.
You're into your 3 minutes.
I get 10 seconds back. Where I left off is the town has been concentrating on parks. The 40-acre H.C. Nesbitt Park that has been greatly improved. It is within walking distance. What I didn't get to say is in the last year and a half, the YMCA has signed a partnership agreement with the town, 16 acres. The town has purchased another 13, and the county gave us an additional 3-point-something acres. So we will have a 32-acre recreation and quality of life facility at the Curitan Town Center. That pocket park that the town invested in is to serve an underserved portion of the town back towards Waxhaw Elementary School. The Town Creek Park serves all kinds of folks and connects to a greenway system that is top priority across the country to have trails and greenways. Now, my very good friend, Shell Holston, and we are friends, aren't we, Shell? We are. Well, we were. One thing is the town already has the liability for that 34 acres as I'm standing here. We take care of it today, not in the future, but today. The other thing is it wasn't a loss of all the park, as a lot of folks think. It's a net loss of 5 acres for 1/2 of the total purchase price. That is one heck of a business deal. Think about it. That residual income, the lady from New Jersey that I've never seen before, I thank her again, but there is no money for that park. We can say we want to develop it all we want. It wasn't there 4 years ago when the land was bought, hasn't been there since then, and not likely to be there in the future. Here is a way to do something with that park. I would love to see that, but we have to be smart. We also have to realize that we are working on a 10-acre downtown park that is the heart of Waxhaw. That park is designed to enhance downtown, make it a vibrant downtown, the downtown that we want. It is the top priority park for us because it is Waxhaw. Now, we've established a Parks and Rec department. We should be listening to all of the things that come from that, and we should be listening to the public of 2010, 11, and 12, and the previous board that approved that Parks and Rec plan. So I can tell you, I'm very pleased to say that I think it's a good deal, and thank you. I do believe that you will exercise smart growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim King?
Jim King. I live at 3514 Waxhaw Margaret Road, and it's outside, barely outside your city limits. Made a deal years ago. I stay out of y'all's business if you stay out of mine, but it looks like y'all messing with me now. Anyway, if given the time, I would love to welcome the chance to discuss this in detail with each of you, but 3 minutes won't quite do it. Did want to point out that if you make a decision, be sure what you're voting on, because a lot of things that was presented to you at June 14th meeting is incorrect. This is most likely a perfect piece of contract zoning. If it's not legally, at least ethically, it is. There's no doubt about it, and you can call the Institute of Government and ask them if you've got any problems. You are going to be adding a minimum of 50 houses with this if you, I'm talking about current zoning now, plus the R4 if you put on, you are adding 50 houses minimum, period, maybe more. Now, the statement was made if Oak Grove was annexed, you know, what they were gonna do. Let me tell you, if Oak Grove, if you annex Oak Grove, you have no guarantees what's gonna happen. If you annex Oak Grove and you put R4 zoning on that developer, by rights, can do whatever he wants to on 12,000 square foot lots or above. So there is no rights that he's gonna say, he's gonna stay with the 24 houses on now, so you may be talking about 50 on the 20-something acres you're swapping with him and all on 12 acres, but on the 26 he has now, what are you gonna get? Now, it said it was set in stone in this meeting that Oak Grove was set in stone. That is not true. Absolutely not true. Now, one of the things at the community meetings I was at the other night in Curitan, they were talking about narrow streets. How many people did y'all hear talk about narrow streets and the problem with people parking on the street? But yet this developer, he's gonna give you street parking for the park. That's great, you know, so we don't care. Plus, his roads are gonna be how wide? 50 feet. Now, Waxhaw Marvin has a minimum of 60 foot right of way, but we're gonna do this development 50 feet, so what's that give you? With street parking, narrow streets again. The comment was made about $250,000 worth of road crew. Well, please call the Highway Department, North Carolina DOT, and ask them, because what happens, Oak Grove already has to put a turn lane in. If this developer buys the 16 acres and develops it, he's got to put a turn lane in. Chances are pretty darn good that all Waxhaw would have to do, because the road will already be wide, is pay for a little striping down there to get you access to the park. I would love to see the water and sewer plans for this too, because I think you're gonna get kicked on that one. But I don't know, I haven't seen it yet. I want to remind you, just what kind of neighbors are you guys? Now, you talk about this, that, and the other. You know, when I was on county planning board for years, the first thing we did, anytime we were even close to municipality, we asked them what their opinion of the zoning was. And it weighed very heavy on our board. Yet, from what I understand, you guys have nobody with the city that's contacted
3 minutes.
anybody. Marvin, the county, the neighbors, anybody about this, which I think is, you know, that's the kind of neighbor you want to be, so be it. But didn't mind going up to Marvin, did you, and ask them to help you with a stoplight on Bonds Grove Church Road and maybe out on the end of Bonds Grove Road. So it's a two-way street, gentlemen, and y'all need to understand that. You also, as the statement was made about people using your services, I'd like to know if there anybody in Waxhaw has ever been to CMC Charlotte. Because if you have, you use Charlotte Mecklenburg. So if a Waxhaw resident is in Charlotte and you deserve to call, you need to call a policeman, then you call a Waxhaw policeman, right? I mean, we are all interrelated people. You know, everybody uses everybody else's service. We use your services, sure I use your services. But a lot of the things you have here wouldn't be here unless people like me use your services.
Thank you. Scott Burrs?
Scott Burns. I live at 504 West North Main Street. I'm a resident of Waxhaw. The vision and the identity of Waxhaw has kind of changed as I've seen it through the past years. It seemed like a few years ago, Waxhaw was an antique village. Everybody would come to Waxhaw to see all the beautiful antique stores downtown. And that sort of faded away, and presently, we seem to be a destination for restaurants. Now, that may or may stay with us, but when I see the beautiful 34 acres that we're all talking about, I don't think I've ever seen a parcel of land as beautiful as that acreage. And even though past committees may have designated this as a neighborhood park limited to only 10 acres, what would happen if we decided as a town to create a regional park that would draw folks from 100 miles away and create a park, a regional park, that would be a true destination? The benefits to the businesses, the restaurants, and the people in general in Waxhaw would be immense. You hear about storms, 25-year storm, 50-year storm, 100-year storm. I think in West Virginia right now, they're experiencing what may be called a 1,000-year storm. This park, in my opinion, is a 100-year park. These things don't come along every 25 or 50, but perhaps 100 years. And 100 years from now, if developed into a beautiful regional park, could serve the residents of Waxhaw beautifully, and I hope that's what you decide to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Edwin Elam.
Edwin Elam, Waxhaw, Miller Drive. To the mayor and chairman, to the mayor pro tem, to all the commissioners, to the town manager, to the town attorney, and to the clerk, to all department heads, and to all the citizens above all. We're in support of the park. We actually speak for that underserved portion of our community where individuals are 80 and 90 years old, who the numbers were, we heard the lady talk about 40 years, but some of those citizens were born in homes that are here for over 100 years, and they're in their 90s, and they remember when it was only 700 people in all of Waxhaw. We know that this board is an august board. We have been at every meeting for the last 2 years. We've seen a tremendous amount of talent brought in. We've seen the game lifted to another level by the town manager who has been hired to lead us through the authorizations of this board. We understand that there's a long view that must take place, not just in our lifetime, but for the lifetime of those that come after. And those 700 people, they've been thinking about that for a pretty long time. Speaking for that underserved portion of the community, we're encouraged by the development that we see happening because it seems to be raising the bar. We don't have the kind of mistrust that some might think that we ought to have, but we actually see good things happening for the leadership that we've all elected. And those individuals who are serving right now, we're asking that all of us take a longer view. We cannot believe that these individuals would be here to actually try and do something that would be against the citizenry, even in the short term, midterm, or even long term. We see the trained professionals that are being brought to the team that actually are managing the people's affairs on a daily basis, and they should be, because the taxpayers, we've paid for them. We've had no complaints even up to this point, and we don't actually see any because of the best practices, the ordinances in which this body is governed by. We see things that have actually been open and transparent, and of all people who might actually question some of those things, those 700 people, some of those individuals from those underserved community, they're actually seeing the ship turn for things that actually might affect them in a positive way, which has to affect everybody in a positive way because of where it's located and because of what it actually provides for every family to be able to get out of their homes and go a distance and enjoy the amenities of Waxhaw. As I close, I would simply ask us, we leave it in your hands. You have been the people that have been elected by the people. You actually have been the individuals who have actually been invited to use your best and brightest and latest practices in the decisions that you make. We understand the math that is at risk. We don't think it's at risk. We see it as a benefit that will actually help the bottom line that then might actually get back around for all of those individuals who are served on the top level, mid-level, and even those that are underserved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to this commission.
Thank you. Okay. Next item up, approval of the consent agenda, modified consent agenda with item 4 out of there. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the amended consent agenda.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve the amended consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Okay, reports, commissioners' reports. We'll start to my right, Commissioner Warner,
I have nothing this evening.
Commissioner Stewart. Nothing. Commissioner Fitzgerald.
Sure, I'd like to talk about events that are coming up this weekend. Saturday, we're going to have a fantastic Independence Parade. Along with, after the parade, we're going to have the Duncan McDonald House for anybody to view. And we're going to have a reception for all those Vietnam vets to thank them for their service, which is long overdue, way long overdue. And I hope you all come over and see the Duncan McDonald House. Now it's completed. It's a beautiful place. I had a lot to do with it. I want to thank my fellow commissioners and the mayor for voting for my day. It made me walk on air. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Burrow. Mayor Pro Tem Hunt.
Yes, thank you. I do have.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. So I sit here this evening listening to the public comments, and if I go down the list, I know about everybody on there. I don't believe I've met Mr. King before. I know I've met Earl and Mr. Cinco, Bonnie, and Shell. And I listened to Shell talk about 41 years of her living here and how she's almost been here as long as I've been alive, and that's close. You're right. A couple more years. But I remember as a child living in Charlotte, in Mint Hill, the east side, coming down here to Waxhaw about once or twice a year when I was younger, and back then it was the antique capital of basically the world. My mama drug us down here for kids to go antique shopping. It was just the thrill of my life. Never actually thought I was going to live in Waxhaw. But here I am, 30-something years later, 20-something years later, a resident of Waxhaw. Scott, the same thing you talked about, again, the antique part. Dr. Elam, Mr. Elam, you talk about the east side. And again, I live on the east side, just down Waxhaw Indian Trail Road. And my neighbors are Mr. Henry Fletcher, the Hood sisters, which I speak to about now every morning, ironically, because at 5:30 when I leave town, they're up commuting to Charlotte. And it just amazes me. But they're blessed people. I love talking to them. I stop to say hello for a while. The Reverend Miss is Truesdale. My neighbor's also on the east side. I also know everybody, well, not everybody else, but other people in town. Again, Shell on her side of town, Patsy McGee. Everybody I know knows Patsy. Waxhaw is a very unique place. I am very blessed to have received the votes and to get elected to do my best in a position. We've heard about social media. I'm on social media on a couple of pages. I've read some of the stuff that was said about this board, individuals. That's not Waxhaw, folks. It just is not. What's brought before this board tonight is a very important decision. It's not made lightly, and we get that. We do appreciate all the input, and we're going to try to make the best decision that we think is going to continue to make Waxhaw what we all moved here for and what we're all neighbors for. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I just have four quick things. First of all, thank you to the Rotary Club. The town of Waxhaw has been inducted as a member into the Rotary Club, the Weddington Waxhaw Rotary Club officially, and we're proud to be a part of that. Item two, Warren and I journeyed up to Monroe to meet with the county Board of County Commissioners chair and past chair, along with County Manager Cindy Cotto. Had a very good one-hour conversation, sharing with them where we are, they sharing where they are and where they think they could take some leadership roles, specifically on some help us regionalize these transportation issues so we can begin to address as a regional partner some of the bottlenecks that we have on 16 and some of the intersections, and as well as on the economic development side, and have more participation. You're going to hear a little bit more about that tonight later in the agenda. Warren and I have conducted our third neighborhood meeting. The last one was at Millbridge. What I will tell you is that each community, we've done it at Prescott, Cureton, and Millbridge. We're on the east side in July. Every community has been different in the way they've approached it, the issues that they care to share and talk about. It's really interesting in Millbridge. Their focus is on some of the annexation issues and how do we become more involved so we can address some of the things that happen, like the intersection coming out of Millbridge and where Kensington Cove's coming in, where we didn't have a say into the design of the intersection, and now we have blind spots there potentially that we're going to get out in front of. But all to say that, as Mayor Pro Tem Hunt alluded to, this is a disparate community, lots of different needs, lots of different thoughts, lots of different perspectives that we have to listen to. Last but not least, earlier today, with the help of Attorney Spencer, I sent a letter to Senator Tucker and Representative Brody and Horn regarding House Bill 483. For those of you that it's going to be in the packet Friday from the town manager's letter out, but basically that bill, if implemented, basically guts the Board of Adjustment, enables developers go straight to court at our expense, eliminates the transportation impact analysis ordinance that we've put in place in terms of making sure that transportation is well thought out, and a few other things. And so thanks to the League of Municipalities for alerting us. Thank you to Attorney Spencer for thinking about what the heck, how do we respond to this on his flight back from Alaska so we could get a response. And hopefully, as I asked them to, this is not a developer issue. This is a cost, transportation, and public safety issue that they really need to think about the unintended consequences of, and hopefully we'll hear back from them shortly. With that, I'll turn it over to Manager Wood.
Mayor Maher, members of the board, Mr. Spencer, one of the things that this board has been very serious about since I've been here is building partnerships and positive working relationships with other entities and jurisdictions around the county and beyond. So one of the things that I want to talk about as we get ready to enter into a new fiscal year are some of the relationships, partnerships we do have that are formalized, some that we're working on, and some are that were more just collaboration that we need to keep in mind. So, but before I do that, to show folks how serious the board is about partnerships and understanding that we can't go it alone on everything, the board has a number of policies and objectives related to this. So on financial policies or related to partnerships, it talks about, when feasible, the town will seek financial partnerships with the private sector, public sector, or nonprofit sector organizations in a community as a means of providing services in the most cost-effective way. And I'm going to go down a list of examples of where that is actually being implemented in a minute. And secondly, it's the same sort of stated goal, but related to public facilities. So those are two from the financial perspective that the board's made very clear that when possible and feasible, we're going to try to get the most cost-effective bang for our buck. And in the proposed comprehensive plan, one of the things that's stated, and I have heard no disagreement with it so far, even though the comprehensive plan hasn't officially been finalized, it calls for partnering with developers of new communities to leverage public-private participation in the construction of greenway and park facilities. Natalie's got an example tonight with the HOA of Prescott, where we're putting that into action. So that's a simple example on that. Additionally, the board seeks, as one of your objectives, strategic objectives, is to build and strengthen strategic municipal relationships. So with those around us, and you have a stated goal for the coming year to hold a joint meeting with surrounding jurisdictions to discuss forming partnerships around common interests and goals. Now, most of that's going to relate to transportation-related issues and where we might be able to partner with surrounding jurisdictions to leverage that partnership with the NCDOT and the state of North Carolina on getting some improvements. In addition to that, in the Park and Rec Master Plan, you have a key goal of adopting a flexible park classification system that guides the development of future parks to meet the unique needs of the Waxhaw community, while acknowledging the importance of public-private relationships and the decline in public funding opportunities. So that also guides us in a lot of the recommendations that we bring forward to the board. So you've got a number of very specific objectives related to partnerships. And lastly, one of the stated goals for the coming year is to hold a meeting with our state representatives, the NCDOT, and other interested parties to discuss local transportation and annexation issues. I heard a comment tonight that an individual would like more clarity on what's being done. Well, the town is being very active in working with our state representatives and NCDOT to try to find solutions to transportation issues, which are often on roadways we don't own or maintain. So here's some specific relationship.
I heard her saying, when are you going to schedule the Anklin Forest meeting, so we can update that group, so.
Okay. And it's interesting because, we went out to, I know you did Prescott, and then we went to Cureton and Millbridge, and those are the same sorts of questions that folks are asking. So that's a common theme, what's being done. Town of Waxhaw partnerships specifically that are formalized, this is probably, in my opinion, one of the most exciting ones. The Town of Waxhaw and the YMCA have entered into an agreement to develop a new park and YMCA facility. So that's very exciting for the town. I know construction documents on the town side for our athletic facilities related to that are being developed. We met with the YMCA folks last week, and they're getting ready to ramp up their fundraising efforts related to their side of it. Y'all stop me as I go through this, please. Also related to that, the town of Waxhaw entered into a partnership with Union County. Union County actually donated, Mr. Cook made reference to this, 3.5 acres to this effort, this joint effort with the YMCA to really allow the town to have a better physical layout for field placement. So that was a great opportunity to partner with Union County, and they were very generous to do that. The town of Waxhaw has a relationship with the Waxhaw Athletic Association. The town itself doesn't have any sports programming per se. We do have fields. We work with the Waxhaw Athletic Association to really be the programming arm for athletics for youth in Waxhaw. The town of Waxhaw has an agreement with the Millbridge HOA related to the Carolina Thread Trail and a bridge easement. The Carolina Thread Trail actually weaves through Millbridge. That's great for Millbridge, but that's great for the rest of Waxhaw too. We have an agreement with them on that. And related to that, town has an agreement with Lancaster County also on the Carolina Thread Trail related to bridge maintenance. So our reach is reaching into South Carolina with partnerships. The town of Waxhaw has a relationship with the Museum of the Waxhaws on annual funding. The same sort of relationship with the Waxhaw Volunteer Fire Department on annual funding. And we also have a relationship with the Monroe-Union County EDC. The mayor and I met with Chris Platay on Friday afternoon talking about some economic development possibilities for Waxhaw. The board has identified the Monroe-Union County EDC as the primary economic development arm for the town of Waxhaw. We have a great relationship with the Waxhaw entrepreneurs. They're in the Niven Price building. There's a business incubator. The mayor is the appointee by the Board of Commissioners to the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization. And that's an organization that technically we've been members of for years, but prior to 6 months ago, we're not active in. So the mayor's taking the lead and representing the town of Waxhaw. And just to give you an idea of how important this is, we've had transportation projects in Waxhaw that folks have talked about in Waxhaw, but were never on the radar screen with the North Carolina Department of Transportation because we didn't go through the proper channels to go through the CRTPO to get those projects identified. And the mayor's rectified that situation. So we're playing catch up on some of this. Some partnerships that are proposed or under consideration. We talked about one of these today at a work session. We're considering a parking agreement with the Waxhaw Women's Club. The board directed staff to go back and fine-tune it and try to get some more specific usage out of that, so we're going to go back and do that. Another potential partnership stated in the board's goals and objectives for the coming year is really to define the town's role in working with the Waxhaw Farmers Market. What's the proper role for the town of Waxhaw? That's identified as a goal. Natalie's going to talk about a great opportunity with the Prescott HOA later in the meeting related to a trail system and partnering with Prescott on that. That may be the first of a number of those. I know we've met with the Quellen folks and the Cureton folks in the past on the same sort of thing, so maybe we can establish a model for starting to expand our trail system in Waxhaw by leveraging trail systems that are currently in place with some of the private HOAs. You're going to hear a presentation later, and you'll have a decision to make related to the Trayton Homes. This is the 34-acre arrangement, property exchange, the annexation and park development. So that's a potential partnership. Museum of the Waxhaws, we have a special use park agreement being constructed that would be between the town of Waxhaw and Museum of the Waxhaws related to use of their property as a special use park. That's under construction or under development. Staff has been working pretty hard with the private sector, a number of property owners, as well as the NCDOT, in finding a permanent solution to the Gray Byram Highway 16 intersection. The intersection needs to not only be straightened out, but also signalized. So we're trying to leverage some development that might occur to get some improvements to that intersection through that means. And the mayor has engaged, and I went to a meeting with him, the Village of Marvin, on finding a similar sort of situation to Bonds Grove, Church Road, and Highway 16. That's the border between town of Waxhaw and Marvin. We both have a specific interest in that intersection. It's the same sort of situation as Gray Byram. It needs to be straightened out and signalized. And again, these last two examples are situations that are really NCDOT roadways, but the town of Waxhaw is not sitting around waiting for an NCDOT solution. We're trying to come up with solutions ourselves, being proactive, and we'll continue to do that.
Manager Wood, not only solutions, but funding.
Absolutely.
That's part of the solution.
Yeah.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, funding will provide the solution. That's correct. Absolutely. We know we have a...
Just a point on that, just to extend it, we've extended that to Weddington as well, because as you traverse down 16, some of the narrowing of the lanes there at Ennis and at Lock Haven become problematic, and so they're engaged in the conversation as well. And to tie it all back, the county transportation technical rep is actually coordinating all that, so we can bring it together as one,
Okay.
the regional view.
Thank you. There's some partnerships and collaboration, and Mayor, if you want to weigh in on these, Union County Public Schools, our state legislative representatives, and the league, those are to some degree political collaboration. If you want to kind of expand on what some of your work that you and the board are doing in those areas.
Well, with the schools, we're taking the approach of meeting with them on a quarterly basis at the board level, and then making sure that they're actively participating in any plan that we have. So they understand Waxhaw as a singular view as they look at schools. One of the interesting things as we've gone out to the communities is capacity of schools is an area where the Board of County Commissioners and the Board of Education actually agree, at least for Waxhaw, on capacity and that they can sustain different plans of growth for Waxhaw. In terms of the state legislative representatives, I think we broke the ice with them by going up to Town Hall Day and not going up there asking with our hands out asking for money, but actually sharing with them, and we did the same with the county. Here's Waxhaw, here's what we're about, here's what's going on, here's the challenges we're having, and it opened their eyes to what was really going on in Waxhaw and Western Union County, because they often get approached with that toxic word called annexation or de-annexation, as well as spot funding requests for millions of dollars for quick hit transportation fixes that has been taken out of the political structure and actually put out into the region, and they can't solve those as readily. The League of Municipalities is keeping us abreast of all the legislation that's going on, and specifically writes to me once a week as to what will impact Waxhaw negatively or positively, so you know where to support, or write a letter of, hey, would you reconsider here? So, all good.
Yeah, all right, thank you. So okay, I'm going to switch major gears here. So we're going to move away from partnerships and into some employment numbers from the past year. Wells Fargo put out a report, and they did some analysis on some employment numbers for the state of North Carolina, and then I want to funnel that down to how it impacts Waxhaw. North Carolina last year in 2015 added about 83,700 jobs in statewide. And this is where it gets real interesting. The Charlotte Metro, of those 83,000, added over 43,000. So over 52% of all the jobs in the state of North Carolina last year were created in the Charlotte Metro area. That is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to show you some building permitting numbers in a minute, but we're ground zero for job growth in the state of North Carolina. And based on this report and others, that is going to continue. That is not going to stop. People are moving to the Charlotte metro area. They are looking at places to live to bring their families to live. They're looking at schools. They're looking at events like in our downtown, quality of life, wholesome places. This is going to continue for some time, and that's an extremely uneven job growth pattern, but it's reality. And interestingly, the Raleigh-Durham metro area added 26,500 jobs, so they were the next highest area. When you look at those two metro areas, so 83% of the state's job creation occurred in two metro areas. If you can only imagine what's going on in the rest of the state of North Carolina in terms of their economic situation or lack thereof, we're truly blessed to be in an area that is experiencing that type of job growth to give people opportunities to take care of their families. And so let's whittle that down and what that means to Waxhaw. So let's look at some building permit. This is actually not so much construction numbers necessarily, but building permitting numbers for the past fiscal year. So on the residential side in Waxhaw added over 300 new homes in FY 15-16. And if you wonder why, and that's a strong number, but when you have 43,000 new jobs created in the Charlotte metro area, it doesn't take, you can connect the dots pretty quickly on why we're seeing those numbers. The average home value amongst those homes that were permitted is $425,000. Again, that's nothing new. You've heard that before. That's an extremely strong number for any jurisdiction. That's an average number. So in Waxhaw, we added $130 million in new property tax base just through single-family residential. This is new construction. So all right, now let's switch over to on the commercial side. I hear rumblings that Waxhaw we're in the midst of an extreme commercialization. We have commercial structures popping up everywhere. So let's see the degree to which that's true. So in Waxhaw, for the last calendar year, you had 5 building permits issued for new commercial construction. Now this is new. This doesn't speak to the mill is a renovation. The brewery is a renovation. These are new structures that are being permitted in Waxhaw, and I'm going to name them for you, so we'll all know where they are here in a minute. So, and that added 3,900 square feet of new commercial construction in Waxhaw last year. So those the 300 new homes are pretty strong numbers. The 5 commercial building permits are not strong numbers. And the total commercial value was about $2.6 million. So compare $2.6 million in commercial construction last year to $130 million in new property tax base on the residential side. So an extreme disparity there. So we are still very heavily single-family focused in Waxhaw. So let's look at, and just by the way, 0 permits issued for industrial construction. We eventually, and this is one of the things we talked to Chris Platay about, we would like to see some high-tech industrial in Waxhaw to get some job creation, to get get people turning south on Highway 16 as opposed to turning north for their job opportunities, and start building our daytime population. He hears that from us. It has to be in the right place and the right type of industrial, but it would be great to provide some employment opportunities in the industrial side in Waxhaw. So where were these commercial projects and what were they? So 2 buildings were in the Waxhaw Professional Park behind Snap Fitness. So there was two buildings in behind the Waxhaw Professional Park off of Highway 16. The Athletic Barn added a new facility off of Waxhaw Marvin Road. Millview, which is across from the mill redevelopment on Highway 75, you can see the construction going in there. And the Cureton Town Center added a automotive use. The Goodyear is going in at Cureton Town Center. So those were your 5 commercial projects in Waxhaw, fairly evenly distributed around town. They're not clustered. However, the board also took action. You may think you have a reputation of rubber stamping everything that comes to the board, but that's not true, and I'll give you some examples. So here was some board action that the majority of the board decided against this past fiscal year. So the rezoning related to the Michaud project, and that was the gas station up near Cureton. There were actually 3 structures that were associated with that. And lastly, there was a text amendment that was proposed for an automotive repair use at the shops at Howard's Mill, and that was declined. So that just gives you just some perspective on the types of development we see in Waxhaw, and I think also points to some areas we probably need to work on, particularly ideally on the industrial side with some job creation if possible. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to request just a brief recess before we continue down, but also I'd like to just have another moment if I may.
So do you want a recess or a moment?
I want a moment first and then a recess.
All right, go for it.
So to the moment is as I was sitting here, my phone just vibrated. Apparently my mother is watching tonight in Florida where she lives, and I want to apologize for her dragging me down to Waxhaw to the antique store. So, hi, Mom. And thank you all.
Okay. We'll take a 5-minute recess back at 7:40.
diet rum to go to that Diet Coke? You have any diet rum?
Next item of business is the public hearing for the Town of Waxhaw voluntary annexation, petition 18-215. This is the property that Union County has donated to the Town of Waxhaw for the Waxhaw YMCA partnership. I will take a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Rice.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, Manager Warren, Mr. Spencer. This is for an annexation of property, property located behind Curitan Town Center. On June 14th, 2016, the board adopted a resolution calling for a public hearing on the annexation petition 18-215, which was advertised in accordance with applicable law in the Enquirer Journal. The request was made by the Parks and Recreation Department on behalf of the town of Waxhaw and is for annexation of approximately 3.523 acres, which consists of a portion of tax parcel 0616-2001 that is being combined with tax parcel 06162005T located on Kensington Drive. 3.523 acres was donated to the town of Waxhaw by Union County for YMCA park development. The property, as you can see, is up here. This is the property that's located directly behind Curitan Town Center that is in town now, that the town purchased, and then it's these two areas along here that will be added to that parcel. The public hearing was advertised, as I stated, in accordance with applicable law in the Enquirer Journal by the town clerk. And if you have any questions of me, I'd be more than welcome to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Rice? We have nobody signed up to speak. Is there anybody in the audience that he wants to speak for or against this? Given that there isn't, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nobody opposed. Okay. Next up, public hearing for Kensington Cove subdivision voluntary annexation, petition 18-216.
Thank you. On June 14th, the board adopted a resolution calling for a public hearing on annexation petition 18-216, which was advertised in accordance with applicable law in the Enquirer Journal. The request is by Cal Atlantic Homes for annexation of approximately 21.4195 acres of the reference parcels to be effective June 30th, 2017. The parcel, you can see the parcel here. This is Kensington Road. Waxhaw Marvin would be over here, and this would be the entrance to H.C. Nesbitt Park and the Millbridge neighborhood.
Before you go any further, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Continue.
Thank you. The public hearing was advertised, as I stated, in accordance with applicable law in the Enquirer Journal. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Any questions for Mr. Rice? We have nobody signed up to speak. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak either for or against this petition? Given that there is no one, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Okay. Moving on to old business that will enable new business. Action on the fiscal year 2016-2017 recommended budget. Mr. Wood.
Mayor Maher, members of the board, Mr. Spencer, we did have the public hearing on June 14th. I've done two presentations at the last two meetings. I think you're fully aware of what's contained in the budget. I I'll be glad to answer any questions. I don't know if you want to go through another 25-page PowerPoint. It's up to you.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Wood?
No.
Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2016-2017 budget as presented?
I'll make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 16-17 budget as presented.
So we have that motion on the table. Any further discussion? If not, yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Hunt.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick, again, thank you to the manager, the staff. This budget is, again, another step in the process of Waxhaw that has been developed over last year, from the year before, and to many years before that. And again, we continue to move forward. This lays it out there. This is on our town website. If you have any questions about it, it's there. You can go look. You can find the information. If you have questions when you find it, you can call the staff, and they're happy to walk you through and to explain it. Because again, this is our budget. This is our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Since we have a motion on the table, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 2, under old business, action on exchange of town property.
Okay.
I think we all know what this is, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Wood as the presenter.
We received a proposal for exchange of property from Trayton Homes, so I'm going to outline what all's involved, give some background, look at some numbers, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions as we go through this or at the end. And a lot of what I'm going to go through you've heard, so much of this won't be new. So background, as was stated at the public comment, the board voted in early 2012 at the time to purchase the 34.66 acres on Waxhaw Marvin Road. The town paid $1.38 million. It was then annexed into Waxhaw, R1 zoning. Looking at the minutes, there was discussion about using the property for a future park. I think a question center came up later, but there was never any definite plans. At one point in time, it was talked about for a potential home for public services. But again, no definite plans were ever developed for this property, and it basically has been sitting vacant or remains unutilized and inaccessible to the public today. Additional background, there are no funds programmed in the town's 5-year capital improvement plan to develop this property. We have programmed other parks for development, but not this one. Negotiations with the developer were initiated by the town and have been ongoing for about a year. Negotiations started around incentivizing annexation and then moved into potential property exchange and park development. So I'll give you some background on how we got into entering into a conversation on incentivizing annexation. Both the Board of Commissioners and the Park Advisory Board have been aware of these negotiations for some time now. And here's just point of reference. So Waxhaw Marvin Road, Quellen, New Curitan, Anklin Forest, there's part of the church property, and here's the property in question. So you got 34 acres. The front 10 or so acres is open. It's got a nice feature with a pond. There is an old barn on the property that is beyond repair that will eventually need to come down. But that's the property in question, and you do have it abuts Marvin on the backside. Just looking at it from a broader perspective in this area, you just had a public hearing on this. Is Kensington Cove. I want to talk about we've approached a number of developers to close these donut holes, so to speak. The shaded area is Waxhaw. This blue area is Marvin. So we're making some progress on closing some of these. Again, they just petitioned for annexation. We anticipate this property will be coming forward for petition for annexation. And also beside Prescott, there was another parcel over here. So we are making some progress with what's proposed here. We'd also be able to pick up two more parcels. And the thing that folks need to keep in mind, a number of years, I think it was 2007, the annexation laws changed. It used to be the town could do involuntary annexations. Towns can't do involuntary annexations anymore. Everything's voluntary. So we have to, unless a developer or property owner wants to come forward and annex voluntarily, we have to go through a process of approaching them and maybe incentivizing or trying to talk them into annexing on what we can offer service-wise. So that's one thing. One of the things that I've heard through this is, well, why are we building a park for development? Well, we're building a neighborhood park, and neighborhood parks are in and around neighborhoods. So, I mean, that's the simple answer. If you look at Town Creek Park beside Prescott, right here, Town Creek Park, Prescott, right there. Here's Nesbitt Park beside Millbridge. We're going to have the YMCA project over here beside Curitan. I mean, parks are located near neighborhoods. I mean, that's the way it operates. Just interestingly, you know, if you look at, you know, one of the other things I've heard is density. We're going to be adding all this density. Well, the board has stated, as a matter of practice and policy, this is Marvin. Look at the size of the lots in Marvin. Town has stated that this is not the model that we are going after. We are looking for more of an urban, dense nature. So that's you know, this picture really shows a lot. So so there's some, just from a broader perspective in this specific vicinity, what's been happening. Some unique features of this property is they've got a brick gated entrance. This was a residence at one time. The old home is gone. It's got a tree-lined driveway. It's got a stocked pond. It's got road frontage on Waxhaw Marvin Road. I think that's the best attribute of this property. A third of the is open field. 2/3 of it in the back is wooded. So I think again, Mr. Cook mentioned this property was actually purchased prior to the adoption of the Park and Recreation Master Plan. Park and Recreation Master Plan calls for a 10-acre park at this site. And that's, we're going to get into some details on, that's one of the things that we're proposing through this come about as a result. Neighborhood parks have a half-mile service radius. This property is almost 3.5 times larger than what's called for in the master plan. Master plan is a citizen-based, the Parks and Rec master plan is a citizen-based plan. It's not a staff plan. It's a plan that was approved by the board, but it was developed by private Waxhaw citizens. And that's what's guiding us in this. I've heard talk about the community park. Well, this would be consistent with what you would find with a community park. Community parks are designed to handle much more usage and traffic, not neighborhood parks. Community parks have per your Park and Rec master plan. Community parks have a 3-mile service area and have program recreational facilities, large shelters, and much larger parking areas. So they're set up to have a larger draw than neighborhood parks. And additionally, the cost of a community park is much higher than what you'd find with a neighborhood park. So here's what we're proposing that might come out of this arrangement. So here's the park property in question, this rectangle right here. So you've got 444 homes within a half-a-mile radius, and if you went out a mile, you've got almost 1,400 homes. So we're proposing a park that would serve, obviously anybody from anywhere is going to utilize this park, but generally this is in your Park and Rec master plan. Generally this is the service area that you would find in a neighborhood park. Here's the service area you find for a community park. There are 4,200 just Waxhaw homes. There's thousands of other homes that the 3-mile radius would reach. We are planning a community park, but it would be in the downtown area, which would have the 3-mile radius from the downtown. So your Park and Rec master plan does not call for a community park in this vicinity. It calls for a neighborhood park. So staff feels that this recommendation aligns with board policy. So here's some things out of your strategic initiatives in the current year. And I went over this in the manager's report. The town will seek financial partnerships with the private sector, public sector, or nonprofit sector organizations in the community as a means of providing services in the most cost-effective way. So that's one thing. The proposed comp plan, again, we talked about this. It specifically says partner with developers of new communities to leverage public-private participation in the construction of greenways and park facilities. It's a common theme here. And this is how we got started with this. Incentivize annexation and work proactively with property owners to annex properties that are surrounded by the town's corporate limits. So that's the issue that got us in this discussion to begin with. And in your Park and Rec master plan, it specifically says adopt a flexible park classification system neighborhood park, community park, that sort of thing, that guides the development of future parks to meet the unique needs of the Waxhaw community while acknowledging the importance of public-private relationships and the decline in public funding opportunities. So there's what was guiding us from a broad Board of Commissioners policy perspective on this issue. Additionally, the Park and Rec Master Plan calls for the development of 8 neighborhood parks. The town at best has 2 neighborhood parks. The cluster of recreational facilities in the downtown area and Town Creek Park. And this goes back, the Park and Rec Master Plan called for the development of 8 neighborhood parks all the way back in 2012. And specifically, the Park and Rec Master Plan called for the development of a neighborhood park north of Kensington Drive on Waxhaw Marvin Road. And when you look at the map, this is the exact location it called for a neighborhood park. So all in your Park and Rec Master Plan. So what is a neighborhood park and what would be proposed potentially to go there? So they're generally 10 acres in size or less. They're connected to town-wide greenway system. We're just getting into the greenway trail system business, so that would be something that would have to occur over time. It has unprogrammed multi-purpose open space. Think of when you drive by or have gone to Town Creek Park. It's got a large unprogrammed multi-purpose open space. And you'll see athletic teams out there practicing from time to time or families out there throwing the ball or whatnot. It has an internal path system, just like Town Creek Park. It has a picnic and seating area, which Town Creek Park does not have. Children's play area, shaded and green spaces, pedestrian scale lighting for safety and security, and public parking. So those are some of the amenities you would find in a neighborhood park, all to scale. So so let's focus on the front. This is the area where we would propose park development. And if you notice, everything in green would be the town property after this. And we would pick up some road frontage on Waxhaw Marvin Road. That's important because you could potentially move your parking to this area versus having to put it more in the middle of the property. In addition, you'd be able to access the entry road into the neighborhood. So this would be the focus on the front end, and then over time, trail development in the back. So that would be almost a phase 2, but trail development would come at a later phase. Let me skip over that. Okay, so here's some conceptual. Again, I want to emphasize this is conceptually what the park could look like. It's one idea. You've got, here's Waxhaw Marvin Road. Here's the entrance to the Curitan development. Here would be the entrance to the neighborhood. So you would be able to spur off the entrance to the neighborhood, build parking, have a walking trail, just as an example, playground, picnic shelter, gazebo, a fishing pier, there's the stock pond, another picnic shelter, and open meadow, so unprogrammed open space. And then over time, potentially walking trails to the back of the property. One of the things that would have to happen would be road improvements to Waxhaw Marvin Road. And we have contacted the NCDOT. We've also contacted Union County. We have not contacted neighboring jurisdictions to get their permission to do this. But we have contact NCDOT and Union County related to this project. And got a lot of information from them on putting this together. So we would be able to take advantage of roadway improvements that Trayton Homes believes they would have to make out here on Waxhaw Marvin Road. They're already making them out in front of the Oak Grove Estates on the south side, so they've got a good idea of what those costs are related to that. But that gives you an idea of what could be. You'd be able to retain the tree-lined driveway, and one of the things that has been mentioned with a park consultant we're working with is that you could partner with the North Carolina Wildlife Commission, and there may be some grant opportunities for a fishing pier, and they can help with the pond as far as the stocking and that sort of thing. So there's some opportunities there. In addition to that, I know there's also been some conversations with the school system. The park consultant believes the property in the back really lends itself to potentially a cross-country type venue with the trail system in the back. I know that's an area that I know you can speak to, Mayor, that Cuthbertson in particular, and I think Parkwood and
Cuthbertson and Marvin Ridge specifically
are lacking in that sort of amenity. So, I mean, there are some opportunities to do some things trail-wise and potentially cross-country-wise in the back over time. But again, that would all come out through a process. If the town opted to go forward with this, you would want to engage your Park and Rec Advisory Committee and give them some instruction on developing plans for a park here. Proposed exchange and others considered. So I'm going to start moving into some numbers now. So again, we received a property exchange offer to exchange 12 acres of the 34-acre tract for the following. So we would receive plus or minus 7 acres back from adjacent tracts deeded back to the town. So that's a net loss of plus or minus 5 acres. The developer would submit a cash payment. These are the other considerations of $636,000. And if the board so chose, you could move forward with developing a neighborhood park. This proposal would add additional open space and road frontage on Waxhaw Marvin Road. In addition to that, the developer would be required to make about $250,000 in road improvements to Waxhaw Marvin Road. When we talked to the NCDOT, they said at a bare minimum we would have to add a left turn lane for a distance down in front of our park if we went this alone. And then you've got acceleration lanes and decel lanes and all that would go with it. But so we would absolutely be looking at having to make financial contributions to the state of North Carolina to Waxhaw Marvin Road if we did this, if we went this route alone. The developer would provide road access off Waxhaw Marvin Road, estimated value about $30,000. The developer would provide additional on-street parking abutting the park, valued about $15,000. Ultimately, the board would consider annexation and zoning, which could result in 90 new homes with an average home value of $450,000. I heard some talk about contract zoning. Chaplain has been very careful on the wording related to all this to make sure we stay away from that. We're not promising any zoning related to this. These are different considerations at different times. I'm just playing this whole thing out to the end just to give you a feel for what it could look like. The property tax value on those homes would be about $40 million. And the property tax revenue is about $144,000 recurring annually. And I'm going to dig into some of these numbers in my last couple of slides. So here's a financial summary just to peel the onion back a little bit. I think the last time I did this, I looked at things from a cost or value per acre. So I'm going to look at this from a little different perspective this time. So here are the property values. So the value of the town property exchange, you got 12 acres at $75,000 an acre. And that was a price that we had received, or an offer we had received about a year ago. So when you do the math on that, so the value of those 12 acres is $900,000. The value of Trayton Homes property on their 7 acres.
That offer was before the devaluation and all that.
Yeah.
That was
So I'm using
back in 14.
I'm using what I believe to be very conservative numbers here. Okay, so you've got $371,000 in valued land that would come back to the town. So you start out, we're in the hole, $529,000. But then you've got this item called other considerations from Trayton Homes. And this is as advertised in the newspaper. So you got a cash payment of $636,000. You got road improvements estimated to be $250,000. You got road access estimated to be $30,000. On-street parking estimated to be $15,000. Then there's a 3-year build out. So the first year of property tax revenue, $48,000. Then it increases the second year as more homes are built, $96,000. And then the third year complete build out, $144,000. So from the beginning of the project to the complete build out of the project, it's $1.2 million. So let's do the math on what that looks like. So the difference in the value of the property, $529,000. And then the value, the other considerations from the beginning to build out, $1.2 million. And then the net financial gain to the town upon build out, $690,000. So, however, let's be completely transparent here on what these numbers include or don't include. So the property tax is an annual revenue for the town after build out. So that goes on annually. However, this financial gain calculation does not include the cost to serve those 90 homes. There is cost involved in serving the 90 homes. Financial gain calculation does also not include operational costs of a new park. I heard about that. So that would need to be something, but that's going to, if we ever develop a park, those costs are going to be incurred regardless, and we already incur costs related to that property, and it's not open to the public. However, there are also revenues that are not included in the town's financial gain calculation, including vehicle property taxes, sales taxes, utility sales taxes, PAL bill revenue, and other state shared revenue. So there are a number of things that just from full transparency that are included and a number of things that are not included in this calculation. So here are the next recommended steps. The town passes a resolution authorizing the development of an agreement. The parties finalize and execute the agreement. And ultimately, not with this matter, but with other matters down the road, the board would eventually consider annexation and zoning related to these properties. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, let's open it up to questions from the board.
We've been working on this thing for a very long time, and I don't have any questions.
I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
I understand all the numbers. You know, we can all get lost in the numbers. We can all get lost in all of the town people that are for the park or against the park for whatever reason. But I question the only donut hole is the development that's going on now, correct? Has the developer bought the 16 acres? Has he purchased that?
It's under contract.
But it's not purchased.
Correct.
So the only donut hole we're talking about is the 23 acres that he's developing now. And I thought that's what the main reason for going forward and trying to get these donut holes in. How did it get to asking Oak Grove to come in as a donut hole to taking the park situation and the land and doing this?
They're doing their due diligence on the property to the north. It's the Arnold tract, and they have intentions of developing that parcel.
If this goes through.
Well, if it does or if it doesn't, they have that property under contract.
Okay. I do have a question about the sewer. Is the sewer going to go across from Curitan, or is it going to cut through the parkland from Oak Grove?
They would have to, if it did cut through the parkland, they would have to get an easement from the town.
Okay. That's pretty much the main questions that I had to ask. I think the rest of them were covered by the people from town. I will make a statement that I have heard from dozens of people. I know John and I were talking about, or Mayor Pro Tem
No, that's fine.
Hunt, and I were talking about different comments from different people. And I've heard from quite a few people. I've met with quite a few people, met with 5 people last week, and most of the comments that I have gotten from the community are against the park. They want the 34-acre park to stay in its entirety. And I think when I look at the budget this year, and with all of the things that are coming with some commercial, but mainly homes, I think next year we probably could budget the money to open that park by ourselves and be creative, get some volunteer work out there, public services, and just make this a beautiful 34-acre park for the community. I think this community deserves it, because one young man that Commissioner Burrell and I met with, he said, we don't have any place to go. We don't have any place to take our children. This would be fantastic. And I agree with him. I think that with all of the money, with all of this thing, and like I said, getting lost in all of this, is to just look at what, sometimes it's not what we should do, it's what is right to do.
Any other comments, questions, thoughts? Commissioner Burrow?
Yeah, Mr. Wood, when you use the number 90 houses, how did you arrive at that?
There are 24 houses proposed at the current construction site on the south side. There's 60, with with what you have heard tonight, there are 66 homes on the north side, which would include what we would exchange with Trayton Homes.
When you use the number 66, what did you base that on? Any kind of neighborhoods nearby?
Now, they identified what the parcels.
Sometime in the future, there will have to be a rezoning.
Yes.
We're not going to commit to anything like that now, but what kind of zoning would have to go there? Is there anything similar to it in the surrounding area?
Yeah, Quellen across the street is R4, so it would be an R4 zoning.
I know that the community in which I live, Anklin Forest is R3, and quite frankly, I think I did a little calculation myself, and the lots in Anklin Forest are actually smaller than they are in Quellen, so it won't be as dense as Anklin Forest. It would be more like Quellen. Is that what you're saying?
Probably something in between.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Not a question, but more of a comment. So, again, like Commissioner Stewart, we all sat here this evening, we listened to the citizens, the people of town give input. It ranged from everything from Ms. Holstein saying, you know, we have to mow grass, but I think we currently mow the grass. I've been out there recently, it's not overgrown, to selling the whole property. $4 million, $5 million. That's not opening a park, that's selling the whole property. It's making a heck of an ROI in a 4-year term. I think anybody here would love to take that to the bank, but that's not it. It's an option. I heard regional park to draw people from hundreds of miles away. I don't think Mr. King would appreciate us being a neighbor drawing people 100 miles away to his street. But I don't disagree with the regional park concept. But the key to that, at least in my mind, is a plan. This property was not bought with a plan. This property was bought with, hey, it's a really good deal. Because it was. And they bought it. And it sat there for 4 years. No plans. Now, again, we've all lived here and we heard equestrians. How many own a horse? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand. I don't own a horse. I don't. That's not a community thing. It was a plan, it was a suggestion, it was a thought, but no plan. This is a plan. This is something that's going to open that park sooner rather than later. I asked Manager Wood the other day in the office. I'm more of a timetable person. I like to know if we vote for something, does it happen today? Does it happen tomorrow? Are they moving dirt? What's the timetable? He estimated to me around 210, 230 days that this part that we would vote on tonight gets moving forward. Then my next thing was, so then we get the check, when do we start the park? He estimated we could do it by spring. We have staff on board. Natalie, Lisa, they are trail masters that we sent and got educated to do this development, to build these trails, to do these things. Again, I just can't help but look and think this is, again, the deal. The community park thing, I'm all for it, but there's hundreds of acres, thousands of acres around Waxhaw, as Manager Wood has presented to us in his presentations over the past couple of months. Let's go buy some of that land and let's develop a regional park that is developed, that is planned from the beginning, not something we just happen to think about. But this is, I think, a good plan for Waxhaw. I think it's a good plan for getting the park open, and I'm in favor.
Other comments? Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Yes, I too believe this is a good plan. I also think this is about the only solution that we really have to get it open. On a $10 million budget, we pay $1.2 million collecting garbage a year. Garbage. Your garbage collection. Okay, we bought this land for 1.3. They're willing to exchange. We're only giving away 5 acres of the 34. Only 5. And it's back in the back, not up front. And we're getting 7 acres that are up front on Waxhaw Marvin Road. I don't see how we could lose on this plan. We're going to get a park. What I would like to suggest is attached to this vote is to put the money that we receive on it in our capital improvements for that park, no place else. That's where it should be earmarked.
Just,
And that's the motion I would like to make.
just the last thing I would like to say, in examining this and talking to people, listening to people, I'm going to concur with John and with Paul. This is a very good step forward for this town to actually open a park, quit talking about it, do something about it. And Christopher, I'd like to invite you and your kids to come fish there when it's open. That's what it's for. It's for families. And that's three of us right here. That's too bad.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion, please.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the exchange of property and to authorize the town manager to enter into a final agreement with Trayton Homes regarding this resolution. I'd also like to add to this resolution Commissioner Fitzgerald's request that the money that is received from this resolution and this exchange of property be designated specifically for the development of this park in the future.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, but I'd ask a point of clarity. And Chaplain, I'm going to look to you here. We've kind of combined two topics in there, but I think we need to be clear. There's the cash payment, and then there's the continual tax. And I'm assuming you're
Referring to the cash
just
payment.
the cash payment.
Correct.
That's how I would interpret it.
Okay, can we combine that into one motion?
It's one motion. We really don't have to change the resolution is the authorization, but with the motion is also earmarking the fund. So we don't have to revise the resolution, but it's earmarking. Y'all can do that as one because they're so interrelated.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify the ongoing tax income as well, so make sure it wasn't included.
That's a good point for clarification, and I think that probably should be noted in the minutes with that clarification. Thank you.
So we have a motion on the table. Further discussion. Commissioner Stewart.
So we're assuming by this money allocation that this is going to go through, even if we don't know what the zoning is and the developer may back out. We're just assuming that, is that?
We have a motion
what I
that
understand?
if and when this gets all the way through to completion and a cash is exchanged, that money would be earmarked for the park. There are multiple steps along the way that have to be completed, one of which is this. Why don't you go through the steps that, go ahead, Chaplain.
Yeah, there's a draft contract. Partner with my office drafted it because I was gone. But it has a due diligence period that either party will be able to terminate because you're both getting property to examine during the due diligence. Yes, this may not happen. Fact of the matter, and there will also be provisions in there, as y'all have already stated. Commissioner Burl did that, and Warren Wood, that you can't agree to annexation, you can't agree to zoning. We don't know what it'll be, but that'll probably be during some of the due diligence period is looking through that. So the only number we would know would be the 636,000. Some of the other numbers, they are estimates. They're good faith estimates. But yes, those would or could change depending upon the annexation, if it occurs, or the zoning, depending on the density.
Or hasn't been a survey, correct? So I'm seeing that it's plus or minus 12 acres, plus or minus, so we really don't know the exact acreage until there's a survey, correct?
Correct, but the agreement is drafted and the original offer both provided that we have to agree upon the final survey and documentation, and that'd be delegated to the town manager. So it'll have to be close. It's not going to be, I'm sure he's not going to let it go through if it ends up with us transferring 13 acres and getting 5.
Okay.
But plus or minus is also a very common legal term in agreements. Even when you have 5.321 acres, it's always plus or minus because the surveys can be off.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks. Well, just to be clear then, Chaplain, and I think I'm clear on this, but make sure, this is a real estate transaction that's no different than any of us buying a house or anything different to that point. I mean, I get it, there's some government differences or legalities, but in essence, we're just now saying we want to look everything over, make sure that it's right, make sure that they agree, make sure we agree. There are still some options that they may say, no, we don't agree, or we may say, no, we don't agree, but we're just authorizing to begin the process.
Correct. You have a general agreement on major terms, but they have to be finalized. And yes, even if you get an agreement, especially in the commercial arena, on a residential deal, you're going to have due diligence. But on commercial, they're always longer and there are always more investigations. And this will have a long due diligence period.
Thank you.
Other comments and questions?
I'd like just a short comment that I personally approve of this, and I think it's something that we'll be proud of, and I think you'll really be proud of in another 5 to 10 years when it gets built out and we have a place to go. A nice green place out on the road there. Have a picnic shelters, pond, just a place to hang out with your family.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, if not, we have a motion on the table. I'll ask all those in favor to signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried 4-1. Next up, action on petition conditional use 004376. The request by the applicant, Michael Camp, on behalf of the property owner Gary Summerfield, for a conditional use permit to allow for the construction of a 30-acre parking lot. 30 space, sorry, 30 space. As I recall, Mr. Emerson committed to God and country, the darkness of the blacktop and the white paint last meeting, so how could I forget it was 30 spaces? Mr. Rice.
Good evening again, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm just going to give a brief overview so everybody here can see what we were talking about. This is a conditional use permit for a 30-space parking lot behind the existing Summerfield Tire and Service Center. This is 16 Waxhaw Parkway, the post office, the car wash, Verizon Town Hall. This is the drugstore, and this is CES Electric. And this is Summerfield Tire. The proposal that is before you is for a 30-space parking lot. Again, this is 16, this is Waxhaw Parkway, this is Summerfield's existing facility, and he's got parking here. What he is proposing to do is build a 30-space parking lot here. It will front on Waxhaw Marvin, but there will be no direct access Waxhaw Parkway. There will be no direct access. The access will actually be through an existing access. The other question that people had was there is cross access that he is required to put in. So once this property is developed here, there will be cross access to allow for automobiles and pedestrians to go between the businesses without having to go back out to Waxhaw Parkway. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Rice? No questions. I'll entertain a motion to approve the petition.
So moved.
So we have a motion on the table to approve petition CU 004376-2016 for a conditional use permit to allow for the construction of a parking lot. Any additional discussion?
There are 4 findings of fact.
You're going to grant the permit first.
I'm going to grant the permit first and then come back.
Do it either way.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. In addition, I will entertain a motion to approve the 4 findings of fact as presented in the agenda. we can do them all together unless anybody objects per chapter.
So moved.
We have a motion on the table to approve the 4 findings of fact as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you, Chris. Sorry, you weren't speaking quick enough. You were
Okay.
talking about 38, include Papa Billy.
Okay, resident comic to my right. Next up, and then we'll take a recess once we complete old business. Action on petition TA 004345-2016, request by the Town of Waxhaw Development Services Department to amend section 11.361 regarding fast food or drive-through. Presenting will be Mr. Max Oliver.
And like Chris, this was first presented at public hearing last meeting, and so I'll just give a brief overview of the request. TA 004345-2016 is a request to amend section 11.3.61 to clarify the provisions. Oops, that's Kurt's presentation. To clarify the provisions that allow up to 2 fast food drive-through restaurants to locate at the intersection of any 2 public streets. This slide is the proposed language. The existing language is struck out and the proposed language is in red. The town has been working with a retail recruitment, and when looking at the vacant parcel behind the McDonald's, staff realized that there was a contradiction in the ordinance. Sentence 1 is in conflict with the rest of the paragraph. The proposed text amendment would bring more clear standards to allow what is already stated in the first line of the paragraph. Staff has proposed clarifying these standards that would allow up to 2 fast food and drive-through restaurants to locate at the intersection of any 2 public streets by striking the term located on and replacing it with a more descriptive term primarily oriented towards when referring to the location of fast food or drive-through restaurants on a public street. In summary, staff did not revise the language of the proposed text amendment after the case was tabled by the planning board for the stated reasons. Webster's dictionary definition of the term orient, the town attorney's support of the term oriented, and the use of the term frontage was ruled out by the UDO definition. Fast food and drive-through restaurants would continue to only be allowed in the C2 and C3 districts with the issuance of a conditional use permit. And staff recommends approval of TA 004345-2016. And I can take any questions at this time, and Kurt White is also available for questions.
Okay, so thank you. I'd like to pass the gavel and make a comment.
Thanks, sir.
So, staff's in a tough spot. We gave direction to the town manager to not, to be totally transparent and bring things forward and not keep things away from us. Transparency's key. This text amendment's being written for a piece of property where the use was approved over 11 years ago. Kensington wasn't even envisioned, as Mr. Cook said earlier. Cuthbertson schools were not even on the drawing board. The mixed use for Prescott and Curitan were envisioned for something else. No ordinance were written to anticipate the impact of the slow economy. And over the years, even though per our attorney, it was always on the docket to update the UDO to address these properties, it never happened. So now staff takes the tough spot and gives it to the board to put us in a difficult spot with economic growth, and as a standalone transaction, this could possibly enable some targeted growth. With that said, as I've gone and researched a number of drive-through ordinances, I think we would be, it would be inappropriate for us to approve this at this time. I think we have to put the due diligence into writing a thorough drive-through ordinance. I applaud your efforts. I understand what's at stake here. But for us to look at this and not understand going into and just give them carte blanche, the impact on a service intersection, the scope of Kensington, Cuthbertson, and 16, as well as the ingress egress, and trying to figure out, and I asked Chaplin this question, and he quick hopped on the plane to Anchorage, so I couldn't get to him. I asked him, how do you define orientation? Because the post office defines it as ingress egress, and it would put both of them on Cuthbertson, which should say we have side-by-side restaurants. All to say a difficult spot. To me, perhaps a more appropriate place is if the applicant would come forward and take it to the Board of Adjustments for a variance. We've had that debate back and forth, and it's plausible, all of which further says to me this is one that is too loose at this time for that part of town, for what that part of town has become. As much as we need to support economic growth, we need to do it in a responsible way, and I don't think this would be responsible growth. I will take my gavel back.
Are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Gavel back.
So who else would like to join in here?
I'd just like, yeah, I'd like to add, excuse me, I'd like to add one thing to that. Yeah, you're right, we have put the staff and Mr. Wood in an uncomfortable situation. And we as a board need to finish our comprehensive plan, and we need to discuss during that comprehensive plan finalization how we want to group different uses. I mean, I've heard different people say it's good to have fast food restaurants clustered. I've heard some tell me in planning that it's good to have them spread out. We need to be able to answer that ourselves and incorporate that in the UDO after having discussed it and, you know, memorialized it in the comprehensive plan. So I would agree, this is just not the appropriate time for this.
Other comments, questions? Commissioner Fitzgerald?
I also agree with both of you, gentlemen. I also think that the tent on the 400 feet was exactly the tent, 400 feet. It wasn't side-by-side neighbors, because really the address for McDonald's is on Cuthbertson. It's not on Highway 16. So the tent of the previous UDO, I am pro-business now. Now, don't get me wrong. I am for our business and commercial growth in this town. But at this point, I would vote against it.
Any other comments or a motion?
Yeah, I tend to disagree with the majority, it looks like. I think that the fast foods are going to located next to each other, always restaurants. You always locate next to, banks grow up next to each other. Every commercial business, there's competition. It's a good thing. I think the 400 feet's silly and ridiculous, honestly, and shouldn't have ever been put in the code.
And I do respect your point, Commissioner Warner. In just looking at other policies, a lot of them look to and take into consideration proximity to intersections and based upon the service level classification. And when I started looking at that from this one, and again, I have a relatively new driver that drives up to Cuthbertson, already been in one accident, and that's a dangerous road, and waiting for that to occur after the fact, and in hopes that a traffic impact analysis would and again, put the cost on the applicant to figure out whether or not we could even do anything and potentially come back with the answer saying no, sitting there while we've exposed ourselves with an open ordinance. My suggestion would be to the applicant to go through the Board of Adjustments and ask for a variance and see it that way against, but I respect what you're saying. We agree to disagree on that.
I mean, I've seen that there it's been there for a very long time, hanging out there.
It absolutely has.
And it's just something that people are trying to become exclusive in this neighborhood. I've lived here 32 years, and I've seen it grow from a small town. I'm just a good old boy. I mean,
Yeah, and I looked at the, this same design down on 521, and they designed it so the egress was less impactful on 521, and that's all I was getting at. So, any further discussion or a motion or?
All right,
I would like to say that I appreciate Mr. Warner's opinion, but the intent of this code was not to have on Highway 16, Highway 74. That was what the intent was. We don't want fast food. Everybody has a break in the road, fast food, another fast food. That's not what Waxhaw, I think, intends to become. We're not going to be the fast food capital of the world. We want to be a residential area, but we want to have some amenities of local retail shops that we can go to. And we do like our fast food, but we want to restrict it in some sort. And this is a restriction of sorts. I see that parcel could be better served as a casual dining or sit-down restaurant rather than a fast food restaurant, because that's what says Waxhaw, not fast food.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments
I do.
that they'd like to address, maybe to the mayor beforehand, before I hand it back to him? Commissioner Stewart, go ahead.
Not to the mayor, just in general.
All right, yes, ma'am, go ahead, just in case he wants to respond, though, I still have it. Go ahead.
I don't think that we want to see fast food restaurants in Waxhaw side by side by side. I'm against that. And I've been here a long time as well. But I respect your opinion,
thank you.
Jim.
Does anyone else have any comments, questions? All right, I'm going to hand it back to you because I do have one. I can't talk holding that thing.
Would you like to be recognized?
Yes, please, I'm sorry.
Okay, we can have a
You can
comment.
hit me with it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I hear Commissioner Warner, I hear Commissioner Stewart, I hear everyone. I look at this is, as the mayor said, this is a development that was started long before some of us were in town even. There were ideas put in place with some of that land, some of the designs, what they could put there. The Lowe's was totally new to Waxhaw, huge store, this, that, and the other. I think we've come a long way in cleaning up and making sure that we still get what the vision of Waxhaw is. I know for certain through committees, the UDO, the comprehensive committee that Bonnie's been working on, that we know what Waxhaw is going to look like. I just don't think that this is the time to start tinkering one-offs again until this other gets out there. So I'd like to make a motion to deny petition TA text amendment 004-345-2016 as presented. The text amendment request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and the future planning goals of the town of Waxhaw. It is not reasonable and in the public interest as it will not clarify the standards of the UDO. And that's my motion.
We have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor to deny the text amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 4-1. We will take a 5-minute recess back at 8:45 to take the 3 new business items.
And it needs to be said, you know, everybody wants to be pro-business, but
Yeah, the Diet Coke.
I mean, this is what, you know, retail study says.
We're on the home stretch. Next item up for discussion. Prescott Trail Easement Agreement. Natalie Jackson.
Good evening. Tonight I'll be going over a possible trail partnership with the Prescott Homeowners Association and how that relates to our trail planning picture, so the big picture. I want to talk to you about a planning year that we plan to have this fiscal year coming up, but we've really started already. And then, of course, I would like to request approval of the Prescott easement. Just to orient you, this is a depiction of Waxhaw trails on the north side of town. And what we currently have both public access as well as private trail. The green trail you see by Town Creek Park is our only public access trail, along with, now make sure I don't get this wrong, but which one is the, got it, sorry about that. Okay, so public access trail, Town Creek Park here. And then, of course, we have our new natural surface trail that goes to our cross-state connection bridge. And just to orient you to that, the rest of the depictions are private trails associated with our subdivisions. Okay, so a Prescott Trail Partnership, what does that mean? Essentially, that means a wonderful thing for Waxhaw. It means more trail for our citizens to access. Currently, we have the 12 Mile Creek Greenway, and that can be accessed at Town Creek Park. And at some point, as you're going along the greenway, you come to a sign that basically tells you you're leaving public access trail going into private trail. And right here is the private trail that I'm speaking of, and that is within the Prescott community. What we are proposing is basically an extension of the 12 Mile Creek Greenway, approximately another mile for folks to walk on, and that would be public access. For those rule followers out there that stop at the sign, I commend them, but most people continue on onto the Prescott trails, even though they are not currently public access. What we're proposing is a perpetual easement. And in the grand scheme of trail planning, this is actually a very key trail segment for our overall connectivity on the north side of town. It actually helps us to move forward in fulfilling town and Carolina Thread Trail goals, which I'll show you on subsequent slides. And of course, with the Prescott Trail Partnership, that means the town would take on the responsibility of maintenance and oversight of that trail. So the Parks and Rec Master Plan gives cost estimates to help us just get a gauge of how much it costs to put in a paved trail such as the trail in Prescott. And you could look at about $185,000 that the town would not be paying to allow this public access. As far as maintenance costs are concerned, they can easily be absorbed in our current operating budget. Okay, so in the grand scheme of things, and this will tie into the Prescott easement, we have our planning year for trails well underway. We've been working on connectivity overlays, analyzing our existing plans and how they relate. We've been identifying gaps in where we could look for further trail connections. We have talked to Union County, and the number one thing they want to partner with Waxhaw on is trails. And we have also been having continual dialogue with the Carolina Thread Trail on partnerships and key segments that directly relate back to working with this 1 mile segment at Prescott. We're also looking at sewer easements. I believe we have a copy of sewer easements for you in case you want to see what that looks like. But because Union County really wants to work with Waxhaw, we're exploring any sewer easements that make sense, and there's actually one key easement that's very important that plays into our overall connectivity on the north side of town. And essentially what we're looking at is a Carolina Thread Trail goal of a 5 mile corridor along 12 Mile Creek. And between our sewer easement and our work with Prescott, that could happen fairly easily. Carolina Thread Trail is very excited about exploring that further with us. Also, in our planning year, we're exploring the concept of dirtways, and I'll get into a little bit on what dirtways are because it's a kind of a neat idea employed by Charlotte-Mecklenburg County. We've been talking with HOAs, as mentioned earlier. We have sat down with Curitin and Quellen representatives. They have some awesome ideas on how to connect things up. And of course, Prescott, like we're talking about tonight, and we would look for additional opportunities.
This question may go more towards you, Warren. as Prescott Commercial builds out, I know the original conditional use plan had trails all the way up. Is that still something that's potential here that would connect up to?
Yep, there's definite potential, and we are
Okay.
monitoring,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, in fact, we've actually been in conversations with them about taking some of the flood zone that they've got, floodplain. So that could open up all kinds of possibilities.
Which Town Creek Park, the trails there are in the
Yeah,
floodplain,
same
so
thing.
it's the same thing, yeah.
We're pretty excited about that, actually, so that's definitely on the radar. Okay, so well underway. We are working with Studio Cascade, talking about trail standards, enhancing the standards that we have, and that might play into the adopted UDO. We are analyzing our opportunities for trails on the south side of town to make sure we're serving our entire community. South side, north side, east side, west side. We want to make sure that we have a comprehensive trail network. So we're looking for any and all opportunities. We have a really good opportunity to connect the downtown to the Museum of the Waxhaws and designate that as Carolina Thread Trail. We're also seeking dialogue with trail enthusiasts, and we're being helped by Brandon Schaefer on our Parks Culture and Recreation Advisory Board on making contacts with the Tar Heel Trailblazers and the Dirt Divas. And we are also analyzing what is already happening. I apologize for the typo on the slide here. Essentially, we're looking at what the concept of heat maps, which actually tell us what people are doing now, even though we don't have official trails. People pave their own trails. So we're looking at what they're doing, and if what they're doing makes a whole lot of sense, then that might need to play into our overall plan as well. So we're looking at what the citizens are already doing as well. Okay, so for an example, going back to the Carolina Thread Trail and a key trail corridor, with the Prescott easement, we now have the opportunity to develop this portion here. This is also depicted as a sewer easement. So we have an opportunity basically at the end of the day to go from 521 to Highway 16. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about dirtways. Dirtways, I learned about these from our friends at Mecklenburg County Parks and Rec. And dirtways are essentially unpaved, rugged, temporary trails located on municipal greenway property. And the bottom line is we want to let the citizens, after analyzing the property and making sure it's safe, we want to let them enjoy the undeveloped land prior to development. It takes time to fund projects, but in many cases, as I had mentioned earlier, citizens have identified trails and they're out using and walking and enjoying already. So we would speed delivery of the recreational experience ahead of actual asphalt going into the ground. These are less manicured experiences, they're rugged, but greenway rules do apply and they are overseen by a Parks and Rec department. And they're developed via the operating budget. So we would not come to you and say, please add to the capital budget for dirtways. This is something that can be absorbed in our current operating budget. So I asked Charlotte Mecklenburg to send me a few examples of dirtways in their area, and they sent me some nice pictures on the McDowell Creek Dirtway. And so essentially you could see here that it looks a lot like what I would say our 13 acres look like off of Kensington Drive. And we also see where they've developed creative ways of getting across waterways. Essentially, Charlotte Mecklenburg puts the map out, lets people know where these trails are and what the rules are, and they say if you can get there, have at it. We believe we have 3 opportunities in Waxhaw. Yes, sir.
Do you have to mow those things? I mean, the chiggers and everything else in the high grass?
Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. And as far as the Kensington area is concerned, if people walk on them enough, they kind of keep them down for you.
Okay.
So, and we definitely analyze that, but honestly, I think we'd be pretty good. So we do believe there are 3 possibilities of dirtways in Waxhaw. So this means getting people out, walking, and active early. And one example, of course, is the Horton property. The board had directed us to look at ways that we can make use of that property before we develop. Dirtways could be one solution to that. Also, Museum of the Waxhaw has woods, and they have a lot of great trail opportunity within their woods. And of course, as I mentioned, our property on Kensington. We are continuing to monitor existing trail obligations. The event center going in does have approved rezoning plans with flexible 25-foot easements for trails. They want trails. Millbridge does have a phase requiring a key link around Nesbitt Park. That is a very, very, very important link. And so we are continuing to monitor that. And just to give you an idea of where those locations, approximate locations are as far as monitored links. So in closing, the Greenway or the 1 mile of Prescott Trail is a great partnership because it allows us to open this to the public. It allows us to take over maintenance of the trails, which helps out the Prescott Homeowners Association. But in the grand scheme of things, it provides a very key link to the overall trail planning picture. It helps us to have a great deal of cost avoidance on trail that we would have to put in ourselves in that approximate location. And it gives it just an enhancement to the existing greenway. So with all of that being said, I'd like to ask that the board consider approval of the easement as presented, and also giving the town manager authority to make minor changes as needed in order to have that easement signed by both parties.
Thank you. Any questions?
Is the property going to change hands, or is it going to be in Prescott's
It'll be a permanent easement on Prescott
permanent
property.
easement? So Prescott will carry the liability insurance on the property?
We will as well.
Both, yeah.
And that is no different than what we do with Millbridge for the natural surface trail that we just put in. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a estimated cost amount for maintenance and upkeep for the town?
There is an estimated cost of maintenance, and it says that it's $7,000 in the Parks and Rec master plan, but I can tell you from experience in maintaining our current trails, we don't spend $7,000 to maintain those trails. We also went out and did an assessment of the trails and the condition that they were in, and there were extremely minor repairs needed that Billy could do in about a day. So they're in pretty good shape, and definitely a great source of cost avoidance. So we definitely can absorb that cost in a regular operating budget.
I can tell you from when I was HOA president, and the gentleman that succeeded me, Mr. Figueroa, can also ascertain this, that we had done a reserve study out there, and the cost was for trail improvement was $5,000 every 5 years, basically.
Which is very doable, and again, it does provide that key linkage, so we would want a trail in that general area anyway.
I apologize, I'm not that familiar. Are these paved, or
Yes,
are they?
sir, they're paved trails.
With
They're
asphalt,
8 feet
yeah.
wide.
Okay.
Yes. They're very much a mirror of what you see at Town Creek Park and on the 12-mile Green Bay. It's actually just a continuation of what people are walking on now.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
We have a motion on the table to approve the trail easement agreement between the town of Waxhaw and Prescott Homeowners Association. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, retail recruitment partnership with Monroe Union County Economic Development Corporation. There's no presentation for this.
No,
It's yet.
just verbal. A few months ago, Mayor Maher, members of the board, Mr. Spencer, a few months ago, Chris Platay with the Monroe Union County EDC approached me and asked if Waxhaw would be interested in entering into a partnership for retail recruitment with them. And I told him that we were heavily involved with Buxton financially, but that we may be interested in an in-kind perspective in participating, and this is what's before you, to enter into a 2.5-year initial in-kind contribution. And you can see we would be offering some of Buxton's data platform, some training from them, and then after 2.5 years we would consider our participation in the partnership. We would not be sharing any of the data per se that we've gotten from Buxton, specific to us.
But we'd have access to their staff support.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Any questions?
Just one. Do we, by not not contributing money get sort of a second-class citizen approach to this, or you're comfortable that we're going to be like equal partners?
We'd be equal partners.
All right, thank you.
Any questions, any motions?
Yeah, just looking at those numbers there, I mean, we pay Buxton 50,000 a year, is that what?
Correct.
And Indian Trail's paying, Union County, that's, and their Indian Trail is 10 times as big as we. So we're paying a big dollar.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the county's going to hire a staff person, whereas, we're utilizing Buxton and all their data that they bring to the table.
Mayor Pro Tem Hunt?
So this basically then gets us a seat at that table.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve entering into 2.5-year agreement for retail recruitment with Monroe Union County Economic Development Corporation.
We have a motion on the table to approve the retail recruitment partnership with Monroe Union County Economic Development Corporation. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Again, carries 5-0. Last item on the agenda is we have some cleanup on boards and committees. And I will, we uncovered it during the work session today, just some procedural movements. So I will accept a motion to extend all expiring terms of all town boards and committees to extend until July 31st, 2016.
So moved.
We have the motion on the table. Any discussion? All those, and just so you know, the intent here is that at the July 26th meeting, that we would do a review of all boards and committees with appointments, et cetera. So that will give the OAC committee chance to recruit and develop a slate of candidates. So with that motion on the table, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The ayes have it, 5-0. At this point in time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Call it a night.
Thank you.